Screamer was my most anticipated racing game release in a long time. Here's a complete restart of a dead franchise that is attempting things we really haven't seen in bigger budget racing games. Now that I've spent a lot of time with the game, I'm glad to say that it's absolutely fantastic. Let's dive into the many positives and the few negatives of Screamer. Starting with the menu, it has this anime cyberpunk art style with the angular machinery look along with bright, contrasting colors, character artwork, animated pieces, and transitions. While it may look busy on initial glance, it's pretty easy to comprehend and navigate. For the graphics, they are beautiful. That anime cyberpunk aesthetic is carried through to the environment and vehicles. There are mostly realistic, high quality textures, exaggerated lighting, tons of detail, and vibrant colors. In contrast, there are slight black outlines on the edges of objects to give it more of a drawn look. Also, the effects like electricity, explosions, and smoke are much more cartoonish styled. It's a bit of a disconnect compared to the rest of the visuals, but it's not something that really stood out to me. Overall, Screamer starts off strong with an amazing presentation for its UI and graphics. The main story revolves around the Screamer Racing Tournament run by a mysterious man called Mr. A. There are 5 teams participating, with each having 1 leader and 2 members. The story takes place over 4 chapters, with many main and optional missions. While we get some fully animated cutscenes, the majority of the story is told through text-based dialogue with voiceovers. The characters themselves are quite interesting. From the exaggerated personality of Hina to the brutish attitude of Kenji, seeing all these characters interact and clash with each other is quite fun. My favorite character is Dirk, but Noboro is a close second. Also, because of a universal voice translator that everyone has in this world, all the characters speak to one another in their native language.
I hate the desert.
Ah ouais? Je trouve que ça a son charme.
Seriously?
The storylines themselves are intriguing as not every team is there just to win, and most of the plots end up intertwining with each other quite well. There is an over-the-top but dark tone that feels in line with some of the anime that I've seen. Additionally, the game does a decent job tying the narrative elements to what you actually do in the race events. However, I have some complaints with this story. Firstly, there are just too many characters. Since they all relatively get a decent amount of screen time, there is so much to keep track of. I feel the story would have been tighter if there was 1 less team, but this would have also resulted in less vehicles too. Secondly, the pacing could be better. Chapter 1 is very slow as there are rather short gameplay sections contrasted by long dialogue scenes. Once you get to Chapter 2, not every episode is required, and it does start to pick up since the plot lines are now set in motion. However, if you complete all the optional episodes like I did, I feel that the story drags on for too long. Lastly, I would have loved more animated cutscenes. With only around 30 minutes of cutscenes, there are particular key moments that lose some of their impact not being animated. So, is this the best story I've ever experienced in all of gaming? No, but for a story in the racing game genre, it's a damn great attempt. It would have been even better with less characters, tighter pacing, and if there were more animated cutscenes. Screamer has 18 fictional vehicles, with their designs being hyper-stylized models of recognizable real-world vehicles. Each team has a particular identity and theme that is shared between their cars. Every vehicle is also considerably different from one another in terms of their handling, performance, and unique ability, although it would have been nice to have some basic stats for each car to see key differences without needing to drive them. Anyways, my favorite is Hope's Sauvage de Sur CN107. It may not be the best handling or even the most striking car here, yet I'm a sucker for Porsches and it feels really damn good to drive with a tighter, grippier handling model compared to others. In regards to customization, this is a bit of a letdown. You can change out the hood, body kit, exhaust, lights, mirrors, splitter, spoiler, wheels, and windshield. However, the design and colors of the parts cannot be changed as it is determined by the particular set it's from. So it's more like preset clothing pieces for playable character rather than the traditional car customization we are used to. Despite this weird customization, I love all the vehicles' designs and that they feel noticeably different from each other. I want to quickly talk about Screamer's third-person camera as I really do not like it. While there's a good sense of speed here, the camera swings out and back in so aggressively. This can be especially seen if you crash into a wall while drifting. It just makes the handling seem floatier and more imprecise than it actually is. Thankfully, there are hood and bumper views. Yet, I would have loved for another camera option that is more like inertial drift, where the car stays centered on screen. In total, there are 32 tracks with environments ranging from dense cities, barren wastelands, large forests, and more. Each track has a difficulty grade, going from the easiest, which is C, to the hardest, which is SSS. Lower difficulty tracks usually have longer straights with shallower turns, and the higher difficulty ones are corner-heavy courses with barely any straight sections. While I prefer the simpler tracks, the complex ones are still quite fun. There is a decent amount of elevation changes, although there isn't a ton of spots to get airtime. Also, most of the tracks have one shortcut that is usually hidden rather well. These will cut considerable parts of the track, which means you can really fall behind if you don't know where they are or miss them. Anyways, my favorite courses are the two that take place deep in the city, which are Anaconda's Nest and Financial District. The amount of detail is outstanding, and the moody vibe is just perfect. The design of the courses are also quite fun, with 90-degree turns and the Financial District track having a big incline where you can get considerable airtime. While I would have loved more airtime spots and less race-changing shortcuts, the tracks are still really good. Screamer has an excellent original score that is a mix of electronic, pop, and rock. The menu has different music depending on which part you are on. There is an overall distinct sound for each team, with every member getting their own unique song. My favorites are the main menu music, Hina's theme song, Cannon Pop, and Akemi's theme song, Punto. Starting off with the game modes, there is Race, Team Race, Overdrive Challenge, Checkpoints, Time Attack, and Score Challenge. Race and Time Attack are self-explanatory. Team Race is won by a combination of the team's points earned from position and combat. Overdrive Challenge sees how long you can last when forced into a never-ending overdrive state, which I will explain later on. Checkpoints is where you need to keep passing as many checkpoints as possible before you run out of time. Lastly, Score Challenge is a set of races and special events where you need to build up points for a final score. If you lose any of the events, your run is over. These modes are fun, but the gameplay really shines with how complex the mechanics are. The main one is the two power bars, the left one being sync and the right one being entropy. Sync is used for boosting and shielding. It can be filled by drifting, drafting, wrecking opponents, and driving at high speeds. You can also get it from active shifting, which is where you manually shift up at the designated point instead of letting the car automatically change gears. Now, using boost and shield will fill up your entropy bar. Entropy is used for strikes and overdrive. Strikes send your car flying forward with a lot of force, allowing you to take down opponents. If the entropy bar completely fills up, you can activate overdrive. This substantially increases your acceleration, top speed, and lets you perform takedowns continuously. The shield will be on initially, but once you run out, you are vulnerable to any collisions or attacks. Now, I'm not usually a fan of the press a button to wreck opponents system, but here it makes sense due to how it ties into the power bars mechanic. Also, you aren't always guaranteed a takedown, as you can miss or be blocked by a shield. For the controls, it's a twin stick system like inertial drift, where the left stick is for grip turning, while the right stick is for drift steering. If you don't like this control scheme, you combine the steering and drifting to the same stick. Regardless, all of this makes for pretty engaging but complex gameplay. There are a lot of mechanics you have to balance, and it requires much more focus compared to other, simpler arcade racers. Vehicles in Screamer feel relatively heavy, have strong brakes, and are quite responsive. While each car's handling feels considerably different, in general the drifting is fast and very controllable. The drift stick will swing out the back of your car, while the turning stick helps you adjust your angle and trajectory. This control scheme gives you a good amount of finite adjustment that you can't do in a traditional brake-to-drift system. Now, if you haven't played any racing games with twin stick controls, this will take a bit to get accustomed to. Even though I've played games with similar control schemes, being Inertial Drift and Monster Jam Showdown, it still took me some time to get comfortable with Screamer's implementation. My only complaint is that the steering axis is not really useful outside of drifting. Cars will barely turn in, so you still need to put in some drift angle even for shallow corners. I get this was the intended way to take these corners, but it just feels awkward to do. In regards to combat and damage, the only way to wreck opponents is using strikes, as normal hits don't do much. There's also a limited damage model here, with scratches and parts falling off. However, there is no visual deformation even when taken down. In the end, while I would have loved more visual damage, the overall physics and the feel of the cars is quite good. Screamer is the type of untraditional and experimental arcade racer that the genre needs more of. The stunning presentation, good story, and complex gameplay definitely sets it apart from other racing games. Plus, the amazing vehicles, fun tracks, superb music, and mostly great physics really ties everything together so well. Despite my complaints with the story and camera, I highly recommend Screamer. It's an amazing arcade racer that deserves more support. This has been Gamer Alex. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day.